Hi folks, welcome to the show. Today's subject is Chianti. We've got a couple of different bottles here. We're going to talk about where this wine is from, how the wine's made, history a little bit, but it's not going to be a long-winded video. As soon as I move things around, I'm going to stop talking and start pulling corks, and we will get into this. And hopefully you'll know a little bit more at the end of this video than you did at the start of the video. So here we are with a couple of bottles of Chianti. If you take a look, the name down here, Corte Alamira. Name on this one, Corte Alamira. This is a 2020 Reserva. Reserva means that it has been in an oak barrel for at least 2 years after the wine was made, and then a couple months in a bottle. And on the back of here, these are both from one of our local stores, Lidl. It's a wealth of information with any wine bottle. It is required by U.S. law. The first thing you'll see here is that this is from Tuscany. They like you to serve it warm, and it's a dry wine. A little bit of propaganda telling you what's what. And if you look, it's bottled by a company in a town called Lamporiccio, Italy. The Reserva, bottled in Cetona, Italy. These two cities are about a 2-hour drive from one another, and neither of the cities are in the Chianti region. That's not unusual. One thing that says this is true Chianti is this little disclaimer up here. It's the DOCG, and that's it's a controlled and guaranteed designation of origin. So the province of Tuscany, big province in Italy, about the size of New Jersey. Within that are sub-regions, and there are a handful of Chianti regions. Chianti hasn't been a DOCG wine that long. It's only been given that qualification back in 1984. Before that time, wines were being made all over Italy that were being labeled as Chianti. And of course, they're still made in the U.S. that are things like, Carlo Rossi Chianti, things like that, which are not truly Chianti at all. Chianti is a wine that's grown, grapes that are grown in the Chianti region. The wines are made in the Chianti region. A lot of times you've got people who have acres and acres of grapes but don't have a winery because winemaking equipment's expensive. One other thing you're going to see here, this is a synthetic cork, and this is a natural cork. So when you look at the label there and you say, it's not saying that it's made by a winery called Corte Alamira. It's not. Probably 80% of the wines, maybe more, in your wine shop and grocery store are not made completely at the winery that has its name on the label. Sometimes if it says vented and bottled by in the U.S., that means that a minimum of 15% of the wine was made by that winery. If it says cellared and bottled by, probably a truck drove up, or a truck drove to a place that produces bulk wine. You got a whole bunch of bottles of wine. They rolled them back to the cellar, held on to them for 3 or 4 months, and threw labels on them. There's a ton of wines that aren't made by the name that's on there, so don't let that put you off. They can still be good wines. So in Chianti, you've got lots and lots of hundreds of square miles of vineyard land, and the predominant grape is Sangiovese. It's a famous Italian red grape. In the standard bottlings, this DOCG guarantees that at least 70-75% of that wine is going to be Sangiovese. Up to 10% of it can be a white wine, And the reason that is because white wine is usually cheaper in that region, and they just want to fill a bottle. On the Reservas, you've got to be looking at least 80% Sangiovese. And another difference is that this wine, the standard offering, you've got to have a alcohol by volume of at least 11.5%, and this one's 12.5. On the Reservas, it's got to be at least 12.5%, and this one's 13. Sitting in a barrel for 2 years, this wine is going to do a little tannin exchange, and the tannins from the grape skin and grape seeds are going to break down a little bit. The oak tannins are going to soften these up a little bit, and after 2 years, hopefully this is going to be a little bit smoother wine than this one. I can tell you from experience with both of these that this is a pretty bright flavored wine. This is a little bit more subdued. I can also tell you that both of them are very typical for Italian wines, which means that they're pretty acidic. If you're drinking a Santa Margherita Pinot Grigio, that's a pretty soft white wine. There's no tannins from the white grape skins. The red wines, however, are typically pretty acidic. But in Italy, as well as Spain and France, and I'd say Germany too, you almost never just get a glass of wine poured and to sit and drink at a restaurant. They're always going to have some food with it. In Italy, it's going to be olives, or maybe some sardines, or maybe half a hard-boiled egg, something like that. Not just peanuts like at a bar in the U.S. So these go great with food. They're a little tougher for the, I think, American palate without food. And so if you take a look at this, you can get an idea on the color. We're looking at, try to brighten this up just a bit. It's a little bit bricky red. It's red with just a touch of orange. After 2 years in the barrel, we should see this as a little bit more oxidized looking. So what do you think? We're about looking at apples to apples here. But to tell you the truth, in this particular brand, this isn't a winery, but it's a brand, there's not a ton of difference. Once you have your bottle at home, is it something that you want to age? Well, both of these wines are under $10. They really aren't age-worthy. The Reserva could probably sit around, but most of the aging's been done in the barrel for 2 years. It's about as good as it's gonna get. If you bought maybe a fancier Reserva from the central region of Chianti, which is called Classico, they might be higher quality grapes, but they might not. What we've got is, the other thing I guess I did want to tell you, these bottles are pretty traditional now. This would be considered like a Bordeaux bottle. Originally, I'm going to put up a picture, boom. The bottles were short and squat, and they were wrapped in straw. And they've been making Chianti for a couple of hundred years in Italy. It wasn't that long ago that things were not being delivered by trucks. I mean, yeah, maybe it's going on 80 years now, but back in the old days, they'd put things in a wagon, and Chianti wasn't near a bunch of rail hubs. So those bottles would sometimes be in a horse-drawn wagon on a crappy road. They'd be smacking into each other. And if they were wrapped in straw, you had a pretty good chance that they weren't going to break and leak all your product all over the place. So we're going to go with this standard Chianti first. In the nose, you'll see also, these are stemless wine glasses, and I use these a lot. And one of the big reasons is, well, number one, they are a nice Riedel glass, but number two, they're short and they fit in the dishwasher easily. But the nose that you get on this is sort of sour cherry. maybe a little bit of earthiness to it. But immediately, the mouthfeel is very dry and very acidic. And that's great if you've got some olives or if you've got a tomato sauce, pizza, over top of spaghetti, red meats, things like that. It's acidic and that helps cut through the fat that gets on your tongue from, say, eating a nice piece of beef, fatty beef, or something along those lines. And kind of cleans your mouth and ready for more taste. But on its own, it is really better with something else. This one, the nose is a little bit calmer. Almost a little. There's black cherry in there, but there's almost a little bit of a cedar box aroma. The mouthfeel, the initial mouthfeel is worlds softer, the initial attack, than that. It finishes with good acidity and pretty much a bright cherry finish on the sides of the tongue. The difference in these two bottles of wine is about $1, I think. If you want something, if you're a person who, if you're watching this in the U.S. and you're used to just getting a glass of wine and sitting down and having a glass of wine, maybe a glass of wine before your meal, this might be the way to go. If you're having it with your meal, either one of these is just fine. So when you get to your store, whoever you're buying your wine from, take a look on the back. This in focus. Where is it bottled by? Does it say produced? If it's produced by, that means they're taking it all the way from the grape to the bottle. If it says vented by, they might have made some of it. This is all probably bought bulk wine and then blended. This one, in fact, it's blended because it has the word cuvee here. So they've taken a couple of different wines, blended them together. They're probably all, they are all wines from 2022 or 2020, sorry. And but the label is going to tell you a lot. Just because you see a fancy label you think is cutesy, turn it around. See if it says it was produced by XYZ winery. There's a pretty good odds that it's not. There's a lot of cheaper wine in the States now that it'll say so-and-so vineyards and has a picture of a tractor going down a hill and it looks like it's, up in California somewhere, and they've got a red and it's from California, and they've got a white and you turn around it's from Chile, and they've got another red, you turn around and it's from Australia. So don't believe everything until you get to that point where it legally has to tell you who it's by and where it's from. You might think you're getting one thing and you're not. So hope this told you a little bit about Chianti, and go out and buy yourself some and drink some. It's good wine. And it especially goes well with Italian food, as all the Italians will tell you. But thanks for tuning in today, and we will see you next time.